Hey guys, it's Jeff. Today I'm going to be reviewing Everlife, which is book 3 of the Everlife series by Gena Showalter. This one was released in 2018 and it is 492 pages long. If you have not seen my other 2 reviews for the first 2 books in this series, the first one is Everlife and the second book is Lifeblood, which I will include the links to those reviews in the description below. And I'm going to try a little bit of a different format for this review. What I'm going to do is give a brief, overview and review of the book, give the score earlier on rather than at the very end of the video. So I'll give the score, and then right after the score, I'll go more in depth into why I gave the book the score that it did, and provide more, kind of spoilers and, for people who have read the book or maybe just want to listen to my reasoning why I, gave it a certain score or whatnot, rather than doing all of that like I have been doing and then giving the score at the very end. So stick around after I give the score for the book if you want to have spoilers and if you want to listen to more of an in-depth review. So if you've read First Life and Lifeblood, this one picks up right where Lifeblood ends, and so you'll know that Killian and Ten have bonded with each other the same way that Meridians bond with Myriad, or they make covenant with Myriad. Troikans bond to Troika. Killian and Ten have made covenant with each other, which means that both of them are now partially Troican and partially Meridian. They both share light and shadow, and if you'll remember from the ending of Lifeblood, their plan was to end the war by invading Myriad, overthrowing and killing Ambrosine, which is the Prince of Ravens. He's the second king of Myriad, and to crown them a new king in order for this war to stop. And another part of their plan is to go into many ends to save all of the souls that have been sent there after they experience second death in Myriad. So one of the lies that Myriad has been telling its population is that when you experience second death, you're actually fused with another human so that you can continue living through them. So Troikans go to the rest after they experience second death, which is just a final peaceful state. Meridians are told that they fuse with humans, but Ten and Killian, among others, have discovered that that's actually a lie. It's just one more variable of control that Myriad tries to put over its citizens. And they when Meridians die, they actually go to many ends, which is the same place as people who have not chosen Myriad or Troika go when they experienced first death. So in this book, what I really liked about this one, which part of me wished it would have happened a little earlier, but in this book, it's done really well. The perspective shift between Killian and Ten, now that they're bonded with each other, they can send messages to each other telepathically through through the grid, because they are now both Meridian and Troican. I wouldn't say equally. Ten is still more Troika. Killian is still more Myriad, but now Killian shares the light, and Ten is getting more shadow. So it's whatever realm they were in. It was more. They're still that realm, but now they've got this added, shadow or light added to it. It's harder for Meridians to accept the light because, based on one of the other characters in the book explaining their covenant to them, it's harder for Meridians to accept light, and as a result, or as a side effect, Meridians basically lose their memory. This bombardment of light trying to get into where all their shadows are, it basically makes them have amnesia and, forget things. And it's still back there, but it takes a long time for them to try to remember things. And then with the shadows infesting 10, she still has all of her memories and throughout the book is trying to get Killian to remember what they were doing in the first place and their plan and everything. But the shadows are trying to get her to reveal and try to get her to embrace her darker side of things of, revenge, and instead of forgiving everyone, you need to hurt them and hurt them badly because they hurt you back. So this perspective shift, it's not every chapter, but at the beginning of the chapter, it clearly labels we're in Ten's mind or we're in Killian's mind. And I really like this because I found that we finally get a glimpse into what Killian is actually thinking. Because in Lifeblood, if you remember my review, I honestly could not tell whether Killian was a good guy or a bad guy, because the way that they described him, it was very well done of him playing both sides, and I honestly couldn't lead one way or the other. I would have been fine with both ways, but now we actually get a glimpse into his mind that he really does love Ten. There's this, since he's forgotten everything, there's this draw to her that he can't really explain, and he starts falling in love with her over again. And that made their relationship to me more believable, because if you remember from my first two reviews, I wasn't really buying that Ten and Killian were actually in love with each other. It didn't feel that authentic to me. It started growing on me by the end of Lifeblood, but in this book, even though Killian has basically forgotten why he loves Ten, their relationship of trying to build that back up to where it was, that was really interesting to me, and that felt authentic to me. So that was done really well. Finally, we get to see Myriad. At the beginning of this book, which I don't know why Gena didn't put it in the previous books, and that was one of my complaints about First Life and Lifeblood, was that we didn't see a lot of Myriad. And I was kind of torn between that, 50-50. Well, that makes it more suspenseful, but then again, we're in book 3. We finally don't get to see it until book 3. Not, the only glimpses that we get are from emails that Killian and his superiors are sending back to each other, and the very brief glimpse that we get when Killian in First Life is showing Ten, like a tour, like a virtual tour. So at the beginning of Everlife, they have this map of what Myriad looks like, which is very similar to the map. Sorry, I can't really see. Very similar to what the map of Troika looks like, where they've got buildings and different gateways, and then around the side here, it's the Veil of Midnight instead of the Veil of Wings for Troika. So it's just this barrier that prevents Troikans from getting in, very similar to the Veil of Wings, where it prevents Meridians from getting in. And they have a similar transit system where they go through gates and stairwells to get from place to place. So finally, we get to see Myriad after 2.5 books. They live in shadow and darkness. They've got dragons flying overhead. Everything is encrusted with jewels and emeralds and rubies, and everything is kind of where Troika is described as the epitome of beauty. Myriad is beautiful in its own dark sense, where there's jewels everywhere and everything is very high-end and very flashy. There's always a party going on. There's carnivals in the streets, people playing music, drinking, having sex in alleyways and in dark corners. People who were trapped in the kennels, which is like jail for Meridians. People who are trapped in the kennels, their cages are brought up into the streets, and people are poking at them and throwing dirt and just mud and food and hitting them through their cages as just another form of entertainment. So finally, we get to see Ambrazine, which was another problem that I had with First Life and Lifeblood, was that we see a whole bunch of Troika, and again, I was kind of split because I wanted to see more Myriad and more Ambrazine, but I guess that makes it more mysterious. Finally, we get to see him. They capture Killian and Ten because they realize that they're here to, cause havoc, basically, to try to overthrow him. And they capture them and they interrogate them and whatnot. But to be honest with you, the very short amount of time that we see Ambrazine in this book, basically, I kind of overlooked that because of the section where Ten and Killian go into many ends to try to save all the souls that were there from Myriad and from people who were unsigned, who couldn't choose in their first life, or who didn't want to choose. That overshadowed once we were in Myriad, and then some of the Troikans invaded Myriad with the help of Ten, because she's still connected with Shadow and Light, so she could send Light over there to bring other people in. They were connected to her to help them overthrow Ambrazine. There's a final showdown between Aaron and Ambrazine. I kind of forgot about that, or it didn't really bother me as much once we got to the Many Ends section, because the Many Ends section of the book, where they go into many ends and try to save all those souls, was done extremely well, and that was my favorite part of the book because of how creepy it is, how you really felt this sense of urgency of, we really need to get these people out of here, and that was very authentic to me. Killian and Ten's relationship is more believable in this book. Due to their connection, they can get inside of each other's minds. So overall, it was a really great book, and it, in my opinion, was the best of the three. But the ending is what prevented me from giving this book a perfect score. And not because I wasn't satisfied with the ending, but Gena seems to have broken all of the ground rules that she has laid out from these previous two books and in this one in order to make the ending fit, okay? So with that said, this book I'm giving a 4 out of 5. It was done, it really, I actually read maybe like half of it overnight, like in a day, which once you get to a certain point, it was just this momentum that I had that made me want to finish it that much quicker. So the perspective switch between Killian and Ten was done really well. I love the Many Ends section. We finally get to see Ambrazine in the flesh, and they speak to him, and there's a battle scene in there, which is really cool. One thing that I actually forgot to mention that I didn't like was the talking animals. In the Second Life, or the Everlife, animals can talk, which seems really out of place. Because so far, even though they're in a spirit realm, it seems to like follow the same rules as First Life. But in First Life, animals can't talk, and but in the Everlife, they can. And every spirit is assigned a guardian animal, and it just felt really weird to me. Like, it felt like that didn't even need to be put in place. Where if they're going to a battle, or if they're going to go try to save these people who were infected with penumbra, the shadow disease. Make sure you bring along your guardian animal with you, and like they're riding like tigers and lions and like camels, and it was just really, it felt like out of place. It was forced. I didn't really care for that. Just within the guidelines of of the book and of the world that she created, I didn't feel that was necessary. Although I do like the character of Biscuit, who is Ten's guardian dog. And if you can imagine what a hyper dog who's very spunky and very determined, when it couldn't talk, but now imagine that it can speak English and communicate, and it's very, oh, I'm the best, and hey, look, I just helped you out with this, and it made me chuckle a few times. So as much as the talking animals was kind of silly to me, I did like Biscuit's character, so that was pretty funny. So 4 out of 5. If you want to stick around for spoilers and more in-depth detail, go ahead. If not, pause this video now so that there's no spoilers, and I'll give you a few seconds. Here we go. Okay, spoiler time. Now I can get really honest. So, Killian and Ten's plan to kill Amberzine is a little foolish to me, because Ten says it herself, spirits never die. So killing Amberzine doesn't really seem like it would solve anything, because so far, we have to assume that even Amberzine and Aaron's spirits, even though they're the second king, that we have to assume that they follow the same rules as second death for other people too. So the whole time I was thinking, well, if they kill Amberzine, wouldn't he just go to Many Ends? And if they're trying to rescue the people in Many Ends, wouldn't they rescue him in turn? So that was a little strange. I couldn't really find a workaround as I was reading of, how are they actually going to eliminate Amberzine for good? Because if spirits can't die, then he can just come back, or he's always existing somewhere. Now, to me, it would have been really cool if the first king stepped in and said, listen, Amberzine, I've watched you ruin your realm and try to ruin Troika this entire time that you've been alive. This needs to end. I'm taking you out of existence. Now, that would have been cool. That would have been a solution, I think, in my opinion, because if the first king can bring people into existence and bring spirits into existence, equally, he should be able to take them out of existence. At least I think so. But that brings me to another point, is that we never see the first king. We never speak to him. Throughout all 3 books, I was waiting for just even a single scene where he comes in and decrees law or something, just helps Troika because they're the good ones and they're trying to end the war. We don't see him ever. Nobody ever speaks to him. He never makes an appearance. And that point at which, if he were to come in and take Amberzine and finish him once and for all, that would have satisfied my first king, because although maybe you don't want to see him every scene of every page, you still want to see him. And that one act of final judgment for him would have been, satisfying for me. And now a couple questions that I wrote down here is that, okay, Amberzine doesn't really die, it just decreases his power, so he doesn't really have shadows anymore. He still existed, but they're hinting at the possibility of them being able to rebuild, and possibly, the realms might be at war again in the future, but there's peace for now. Did Many Ends exist alongside Troika and Myriad, or was it a result of Amberzine's shadows? To me, it seemed like it always existed, because when they rescue all of the souls in Many Ends, the realm reset and shrunk in size. And this is the main thing that didn't allow me to give the book a 5 out of 5, was the idea of these realms resetting. Okay. Now, Ten and Killian, they rescue all the souls from Many Ends. They bring them through the lake, how she escaped from Many Ends in First Life. They take them through the lake, and then they're right outside of Myriad, and then they can choose whether they want to go to Myriad or Troika, right? But as they're getting all these people out, the realm is shrinking and decreasing in size, and they're saying, oh yeah, the realm is resetting itself, and it's decreasing in size according to how many people are in it. Okay, sure, fine. But that extends to Troika and Myriad. So Troika, well, not Troika, but the rest, where people are sent to after their second death, the rest gets reset also. And I was like, wait a second. How can the rest be reset? So everybody that was in the rest is now inside of Troika. And I had to think about this for a second. I was like, well, what's the point of the resurrection then? Because the only rule the rules is that once per year, someone will be voted to be resurrected back into Troika from the rest, but it has to be one person that died within that last year. So you can't pick someone that died like 50 years ago. Okay. Now, throughout First Life, and mainly First Life because that deals with more humans, there's a rule among the realms and that you can only have one child because they want to prevent overpopulation in the Everlife. And I was like, well, if they didn't want overpopulation, then why would you reset the rest? And why would you reset the realms? Because now every soul, every person that has ever existed in the entire of human history, if they chose Troika and they died and they're in the rest now, that means that every single soul that has ever existed is now outside of the rest and in Troika. And they said that they expanded Troika to make room for all those souls. And I was like, Gena, you're breaking your own rules here. You're breaking your rules of making the realms bigger to accommodate all these souls when there was a restriction on humans having children to prevent overcrowding. Now you're really overcrowded, or not. You're not overcrowded because you've expanded the realm. But this whole idea of resetting the realms and expanding it, and then just, oh yeah, we reset the rest, just as if like you pressed a reset button and then everybody came out. It's like, why couldn't you just do that in the first place? You know, why go through all the trouble of like, oh no, and going through grief and grieving for years over people who have experienced second death and they're in the rest now, and I'll probably never see them for a really long time. Just press the reset button and get them all back like right away, you know. And for that matter, if at first Myriad and Troika were not at war with each other, seems to me that there would be no reason to have a rest in the first place. Because if you weren't at war and you can't die naturally, the only way you could die is from, you know, like a wound or something, what's the point of having the rest when there was no indication that anyone would be dying ever? Accidental death? Like, I don't know. You know, it doesn't seem like people have been dying accidentally at all. And it seems like when the first couple souls, or the first soul to be entered into the rest, seems like it would be a pretty lonely place to be at first, because you'd be waiting a long time for someone else to come after you, especially when the realms weren't at war with each other. So but one thing is that we don't know how long after the realms were created when the war started. It never says that. So if it was like a year later, then, you know, the rest wouldn't seem like it would be so much of a problem. But now, if the realms, so there's kind of two sides to this. So if the realms were at war with each other at first, there would be no reason for a rest. But if there was always a rest, which there is, then why even have Troika in the first place? You know, why subject Troikans to the war in the first place with Myriad? Why not just send them to the rest and have that the final resting place? You can't die when you're in the rest as like another stage of immortality. If you've got Myriad who's always trying to bombard Troika and be at war with them, why not just cut out the middleman of Troika? Why not when you experience first life and you pledge your life to Troika, why not just go right to the rest? Myriad can't access the rest. They have no access to that. They can't get in there. Troikans would be completely safe inside the rest rather than just being inside Troika. You'd think that, all right, you're in Troika, now go to the rest. So where we're completely safe and we're completely, let Myriad, if they want to be at war, let them go to war with themselves or something. I don't know. So that was a little strange. The whole idea of Gena breaking her rules of humans can't have more than one child, resetting the realms just like that, without any consequence, really. And the whole idea was that Aaron, sacrificed himself in the battle with Ambrazine. So like when Aaron and Ambrazine were battling, Aaron let Ambrazine kill him, so that as that stupid blood sacrifice that I was talking about in Lifeblood for like barristers who, someone wants to switch realms. His reasoning behind it was, well, I'm going to sacrifice myself for everybody's souls, that way that like the realms can be reset, the rest can be reset. And it was just like, you didn't have to do that. So, and Aaron didn't even really sacrifice himself because he still exists inside the grid. Like he doesn't have like a physical spiritual body anymore. He exists as light itself within the Troican grid. So, the whole realm resetting thing it all happened too quickly at the end, and it seemed rushed. Like it almost felt like she tried to bypass that loophole of spirits can never die. So we're just going to reset the realms as if those rules preventing that from happening throughout the entire series just didn't exist. So, and I don't know if I saw this, or I don't know if I said this already, but we still don't see, yes, I did say this, I think. We still don't see the first king. We never have a conversation with him. We never even see him really at all, except for the one glimpse that Ten had at the beginning of First Life. We never see him in all 3 books. So as a solution to that, now Gena, if you're listening, make a prequel, and I said this in my Lifeblood review too. Make a prequel and call it Torchlight, and make the prequel about the first king creating both realms, why he decided to create humans, what his reasoning behind that was, show how the conflict between Aaron and Ambrazine started. That would be a really cool prequel, and that would satisfy my need for seeing more of the second kings and the first king. That would be really cool. Show how the war started, how Myriad fell, and how the shadows started to spread, and how people were starting to get sent to many ends, and how the bridge between Myriad and Troika that they're trying to rebuild, show how that got destroyed. And that would be a really cool prequel to the series. As a fact, like in my previous reviews, I said that First Life really didn't need to be written, in my opinion. It could have been summarized in Lifeblood as, flashbacks. So to me, it would have been cool if there was Lifeblood, Everlife, this 3rd book, and then Torchlight as a prequel, which would be cool. But First Life is, it's part of the series, so I would recommend reading it. So overall, I give Everlife a 4 out of 5. I give the series as a whole a 4 out of 5 because it's not average to me. It's incredibly unique idea and incredibly unique world that Gena has created, but it isn't perfect. And to see all the reasons why I don't think it's perfect score 5 out of 5. I gave First Life a 3 out of 5. I gave Lifeblood a 4 out of 5, and I gave this book a 4 out of 5. And to me, even though Lifeblood and Everlife are a 4 out of 5, Everlife to me is like a higher 4 out of 5 because I think I enjoyed Everlife the most out of all these books, just because of how quickly I got through it and was able to have that momentum of going through it. So overall, I definitely recommend this series to anyone who's thinking about picking it up. You can find it in the teen, young adult fantasy section. I found them at Barnes & Noble, reasonably priced. So 4 out of 5. The series is a 4 out of 5. Feel free to subscribe, comment, like, or dislike this video if you want to. Add a comment if you want to see my, if you want to comment on something, some other perspective that you have that you'd like me to respond to. Drop a comment if you have any book recommendations that you think that I would like, and I'll look into it, and I'll see if that book sounds interesting to me, and I'll possibly do a review on it. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys on the next one.